Hey, welcome back, family. Yet another episode of I'm Telling You. With always your host, Philly D,
Mr. Gemini here.
right? To talk your ears off, is that what you
Talk
said?
your ears off yet again.
Yeah, right. Which, if you want to talk our ears off, you can go ahead and get a hold of us email-wise at I'm telling you at directionsandmusic.org. That's IMTELLINYOU. I'm telling you at directionsandmusic.org. Hit us up. We'll probably answer back. We're not too busy. We just do this. That's all we got. That's not true.
Wow, that just sounded really sad right then. No, we got tons going on, but we totally want to get back to you because this is what we do.
Well, because we want the conversation. We have the conversations, and we've always said we just want it to be others then have that conversation.
Everybody else just wants to have a chat. Like I want to have a chat with you, and people are talking at you. Like we're not doing that. We're talking with each other, right?
Yeah, I think that's
totally different thing.
That's a very great way of putting it. Yeah, there's a difference of talking at and talking with. I always say the same thing with like yelling. There's a difference between it like yelling at me or yelling to me. If you're yelling at me, like we got problems. But if you're like yelling to me, it's like I'm venting right now. Oh, cool, we can vent. Go ahead, vent away. But if all of a sudden it's like I'm the point of interest, and it's like, well, wait, what did I do? What had happened to us? I don't. What's going on here?
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things like you could just say no offense and anything that comes after is completely fine, right? Don't you love when people do that? No offense, but then they, insult you and your entire family and your dog and your neighbor. And you're just like, oh, wow. I can't take offense to that because you said no offense.
Yeah, that's the, what do you do? No offense intended. Like, well, it sounds like you're about to really insult me is what I heard.
Yeah, pardon my French.
you're an asshole. Oh, you're right. You hit me. I lightly tapped you.
Wait, how long has it been? All right, cool. That's how we do. Unfortunately, we already cracked our beverage.
Well, that was, hey, we don't have to do it on. It's just sometimes we do. Really, it's my thing. It's like my signature move.
I just slurped.
It's the way you can tell it's me without having to that guy there. That's how he looks. That dude. And it's like, no, instead it's just, you're like, oh, he cracked the beer. That's that guy. I knew him. Yeah. That's what I do.
So what are we going to talk about tonight? Because I'm a bit thrown off because we were just we were just trying to record something else, right? That we normally do.
We had equipment issues.
We had a little bit of an issue, like our warm up exercise got cut short, and like I'm a bit frazzled by it, so I'm trying to get back on track. So
I love you. We've had a couple episodes recently where you've like openly apologized beforehand. Like, so if I'm not quite myself, I do apologize. It's just like
it's because I'm on 3 hours of sleep, or
Well, I like how vulnerable you allow yourself to be. That's the one thing I think is really great about our conversations is we've always had that.
Well, one of the things I keep coming back to with us is the whole difficult conversation thing, and whether that's come across or not. Like, the point is, you get to a point in a conversation, everybody's done it before, where you get to a spot you were like, I don't know if I can talk about this topic. And that's where I hone in. I'm like, all right, well, maybe we should talk about that.
Yeah, that's a very Jordan Peterson of like how to actually listen to somebody else, like to have a conversation.
Like, no, you were just insulting me right now. I want to hear the whole thing, please, because maybe this is something I could improve.
Well, and that always goes back to like we're willing to like listen to our stuff and pick things out and just try to be better at it. And we do get new equipment, we do change things, we do have different orders. We're always looking to make our stuff better because we think we're entertaining, but we're also dads and we have like dad jokes, which makes us think that we're funny, but we're really not. So, we no matter what think it's just going to be entertaining because we're cracking up, so you all would be too.
But it's not all just dad jokes. That's the thing. It's the synergy of everything coming together and the overall goofiness. And I think a couple other people have mentioned you can hear the 30-year friendship coming through.
Yeah, the banter, the tone, and
shitty equipment and all. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, but we're always upgrading, which is great. But we do that ourselves too, so it's more to me of an extension of what we already do. So if you really do those things as internal habits of this is how my my why is. Simon Sinek, start with why. If you know what your why is, why do I do this, why do I do that, why would there be a purpose behind it? It's like knowing the needs to fulfill the want. I want to be happy and wealthy. Well, then you need to get up off your butt and go work for it. It's one of those kind of things. When you have that as your frame of reference, when you say, hey, am I going to do this, does it fulfill my why? Does it support that? If the answer is no, then the answer is no. It makes it very easy, very clear cut, and just this is the way it's going to be.
Yeah, and this is a vocal outlet. I think that works for both of us in that way. That it's whatever else comes out of it. Just the fact that we're able to do this and have this is enough for us to keep going. But
Yeah.
you know.
And the fact that I think we're funny on top of it just makes it. It's like, well, if the material wasn't great, at least we had some entertaining moments.
Well, you might be laughing because just the way we interact with each other. But it's not the joke itself. It's it's the delivery, it's the goofiness, it's the
banter,
and the fact that it's obviously not, you couldn't script this. Why would you? Man, it would be such a waste of time.
I just see this guy like smoking a cigarette with like his glasses on his forehead, like typing on an IBM, click, 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 click. Just like, why would anybody want this? I don't know. Why this man is a very sad person right now. What he's writing is horrible.
It just goes on and on. I don't know. Why am I channeling this? This is horrible.
It's like being tuned into like the music in an elevator. It's the sadder, weaker version of...
Yeah, and you're a composer, and that's all you can write. You're like,
yeah,
go!
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That's what we do here, though.
Yeah, you wouldn't write this stuff. No, you'd go crazy trying to write this stuff.
Well, and that us doing this helps us to not be crazy. I don't know. Is that how this works?
It does somehow. Yeah.
Right.
Well, but like any art form, I mean, I think I don't know what's your definition of art. If I was just to say, okay, just tell me in like a short paragraph, what is art?
I mean, I say it all the time. Anything that is a internal expression done outward. So whether it's like vocal or, you're like doing, dance, or you're a trash picker, or I don't care what your thing is. You could be a lawyer. You could be a hamburger tosser. If what you're doing comes from inside, like what your why is, if what that is fulfills that why, then that's, your art. That's you coming out. That's why Joe Rogan always kind of says it. He's like, dude, it doesn't matter what that thing is. If you really want to do it, every day just gnaw at it a little bit and a little bit. And before you know it, 10 years have gone by, 15 years have gone by, and you're just like knee deep in it. And now all of a sudden it's like that makes your money. That's where you're living at. Like that's now your life.
Wow. Yeah, no, you're totally right. And it's funny because when I asked that question, I was thinking more like pieces of art that you could, that you might have at a museum or something like that. But no, I mean, that's totally true.
Like tactile, like you can touch it, hold it, smell
and
it.
That's the funny thing about it, that it's trying to get your hands on the intangible. And that's what I always think of as the definition for art is I'm thinking of it from like whether it's music or whether it's painting or sculpture or whatever. I'm thinking more of those kind of arts. But I mean, like you said, I mean, that's a good tie-in that everything really, even what we're doing here is an art form in a sense, whether it's something that you share with others or not. Right?
Well, I think it's very Bruce Lee, because even he would say in a sense that like what he was doing was his art. So his life, the way he lived, like that was his art.
But the way I define art is more like definitely like you said, the internal expression, but it's like you're expressing something that you can't really ever properly put into words. And that's what art is. It's trying to take whatever medium you're using and try to make or help other people understand this intangible thing that you're dreaming of, that you imagine, whether it's your connection with a higher being or whether it's the connection you have with another, right? Like a love interest, or could even be your connection with cars. I mean, but whatever, like, and that your expression comes out, whether it's through paint or whether it's through a song or whatever it is, and that you're basically trying to take something that's intangible. It's something you really can't express fully with words, but you're trying to create a masterpiece out of that thing, like to make something out of this wonderful daydream that you've had.
Well, yeah, and I want to take it back for a quick second where you said you can't put it into words. I was like, but that's what we do.
Well, that's what we try to do.
Yeah, well, that.
But my point is that
I know what you mean to that physical component.
it's not the kind of thing you search for perfection on, because you're never gonna make it there. It's that's what art is. It's that you're getting as close as you can.
I don't
And that's the expression that people lose their breath over when they look at it or hear it or whatever way they sense it, whether it's food, a creation,
But yeah,
a
you're
taco
speaking.
that nobody's ever eaten before.
You're speaking in like the literal physical component of actual structured, created something art.
But I like the way that you looked at it too. That anything you can possibly do, whether it's to earn money to make a living for your family, that when you throw your whole self into it, it has its own little flair to it. It's not just I'm a trash man. I have my own little flair if I do it.
Yeah.
There's something about that makes it mine.
And
that's your art form.
Yeah, because then if you're doing art every day, then you're living every day. You're expressing yourself. To me, I think that's the bigger thing. So no matter what you're doing, it's your art as long as it's internal expression. Outwards. Yeah, that's.
Well, I love that whole. Now you just made me think of that term that I love is that if you follow your passion and not ignore, but kind of don't shy away from approach your fears and face them, and you follow your passion, you'll never have to work another day in your life. I love that saying, that whole sentiment, that as long as you're doing something that you truly love, the money will eventually come.
Yeah, that's why I was saying it. Joe Rogan points at that same thing. So yeah, maybe you're in that crappy, feel like I'm going nowhere job now. However, if on the side you've been slowly walking this other mountain, by the time you get done, 10 or 15 years, 7 years, whatever, however hard you're working on that mountain, however big the mountain is, when you get to that kind of a point, all of a sudden it's like, there you are. And yeah, that's when you get to enjoy the fruit of your labors, hopefully.
And with the whole tapping into your imagination, I'm taking it back to square one here, but the whole Einstein idea, right? That sometimes you can make a leap beyond what anybody would think is possible just because you have the imagination. That was his art form, but you had the imagination to step outside of the norm and rethink yourself in a way.
Yeah, and
in so doing, you kind of rethink the world.
I could agree to that. Yeah, that definitely was his expression. It just so happened that it was, math or spatial reality, outside of the box thinking kind of stuff. And yeah, I think that's a definite supporter of that component. It really does. It's having that sense of freedom that I'm going to do it my way and I don't care what no one says. That's definitely art. This is what I feel it's supposed to look like or be, or he could be right, he could be wrong. None of us could be right. Any of us could be wrong. Like, dude, doesn't really matter. Simple fact is he tried.
I mean, but to the point that you have such a love. Okay, say the trash man. If we're going to go ahead with that theory, okay, you're a trash man, and you realize through years of service in the trash industry that there's so much better ways to do it, and you don't necessarily have to spend more money to do it. And then you open your own company, and then you start a whole new thing, a whole new trend, right? So it all started from that, kind of loving who you are and what you do and just appreciating your situation, but at the same time, never letting go of that imaginative spirit, and being able to always be connected with that.
Yeah, I like how you keep going back to imagination, because that was that one conversation we had where we always quote the Einstein one that you have on your one book, that imagination is more important than knowledge. I really liked your one point that you made about it, where it was, if we were to lose all of the knowledge, the books are gone, the libraries are gone, there's no internet or phones or devices to pass information, so the information can disappear. As long as you have imagination, you can still recreate new data. You're going to start all over again, but you can recreate that data. You can recreate that information. You can still and maybe this time you think about it differently and you structure it in the manner that it actually is explained correctly. Or, maybe there's no right way to explain any
And
of it all.
there is a creative spirit in all of us. There really truly is. I mean, and whatever, and that's why I like that you brought that around that way, because whatever it is that you do, it doesn't really matter, because you're gonna put your creative.
I'm sorry, I can't.
That was really subtle for anyone out there, but
What would you say that you do here? I told you I'm a people person.
what would you say you do?
Yeah,
Sorry.
so no, you were saying. So.
Yeah, totally lost track there. That was really funny.
I had to.
Yeah, that whatever it is you put yourself into, it's like it always has that. It's like your brand, you know.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to supporting that statement of your why. You know, your brand really is your why. Like, dude, my word is my bond. Like you got to be able to back up what you say, dude. So that you need to be able to do your whatever you're going to say you're going to do it, and you better enjoy it, because that's what you're going to be doing. So.
Well, word is bond in common vernacular means you put honesty before everything else. That being honest with yourself and with others is tantamount, or paramount, or zenith, or most important, or I don't even know.
Don't they all? Did we get a thesaurus in here? Fact checker? No. And yeah, agreed. It is definitely a very pertinent component, where without it, to me, I don't think anything can be, because then at that point you can have like relationships, because you're not being honest, which means you can't have relationships. There goes personal, career, any of that. I was doing this thing about Buddha, about his last message, where it was
reading something about Buddha, or
wait,
you said doing this thing. I'm just curious before you get into it.
Video.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, just but it was the guy was reading it, so it was.
Hard to put a finger on.
Yeah, it's like book on tape, but not really. But still, it was about Buddha and his last message. So he read the whole last message and then gave his expression of what he felt it meant. And what it comes down to is Buddha's last expression is really more about like, make sure that you're taking care of yourself, be your own savior. The idea of the idea of like Jesus being the dude that like saved the whole world from sins or whatever else. And it's like, all right, cool, yeah, you can all try to take care of like everybody else and all that kind of stuff. It's like, no, you should be trying to take care of yourself, lead by example. And, so to me, it's a cool way of like trying to like, because you can do it both ways. Because, like the mother figure of the house is the one that's going to try to take on the entire household. So you get that kind of an extension. But and the father figure, the same thing. They could be the one that's like trying to take on the entire household. Like, so whether it's money or actions or whatever the deal is. And Buddha is very much like, no, you got to take care of you first, and you really have to. So you can't really have like a hero or a glory figure. It's like, dude, it goes back to that thing I was saying about Dr. Eric Thomas, where it's like, hey, yeah, all these stats about all these cats, right, but like, what are your stats?
What are your stats?
What are your numbers? Like, why aren't you trying to get into that kind of stuff?
And maybe people are, but maybe you're not around to see that, but that was just a focus for that conversation that I thought was interesting, that people would spend so many hours of their lives trying to soak in information that they could regurgitate to their friends just to have a conversation. When it's like, I look at that as kind of comical, because I look up stuff that I want to look up. And I have a conversation because I surround myself with people who want to have conversations about wacky stuff like that. Well, so, I mean, it's just a frequency thing. Right? I mean,
well, to me, it's not wacky. It's just, that's why I said this is our sports talk. Yay, sports! Like this
is our thing.
Yeah. So, our water cooler talk is, some would call it deeper. Well, we're willing to explore a little bit more on other things instead of just being very singular. So not just having a component to talk about, but just the fact of conversation is the thing. So, and that's definitely what I think we always try to do with this, and like we were talking about your art, your expression. This is how we do it. This is how we do it. Sorry. Yeah, but while this isn't like actually like fully tactile, where you can touch it and play with it and smell it, and there's no smell-o-vision on this, and there's no, it's just it is what it is. We still have to get that point across. You talk about like the old school where all you had was radio, and you had to like take the shoes and tap it on they were still making art back then. That was their thing.
And here we go back again with imagination, because that's what it's all about. When you realize, like, I got really into reading at a certain age because I realized that a movie could never ever take the place of a good book. Because what you're fighting there is you're fighting Hollywood's ability to create a special effect versus you can't beat what's up in here. Like in your brain, you can create the best special effects in the whole wide world, and you can put yourself right in the middle of them.
Dude, that just made me think about one of my favorite quotes from Jimi Hendrix, when somebody quoted him about how beautiful they thought his music was, and he's like, "Man, if you like what I do out here," he's like, "you should see what I do up here." You know, and he like
Right?
referenced his brain, and it's, you know, if I can recreate to this kind of degree and quality, that's just a part of what I'm getting up here.
But isn't that what I was just saying though? Like, so he has something that he's still trying to speak from inside his brain. And in his mind, just from what you just said about that explanation, is that what I'm doing isn't nearly as cool as what I'm hearing. It's a close proximity at best.
Well, yeah, and I think that
so
was,
you're striving to find something that's beyond your ability to communicate, but this is your best attempt.
which I think
And that's what art is.
Which, yeah, I think that's what I was going to say. That I think that was what your greater point of what, because you were talking about, you know, striving for perfection. Obviously, you can't get there, but yet you're still.
There's no such thing. Well, no, there is. There's, yeah.
But you're talking about, like, you're still gonna, if you're doing, you know, a freaking statue and you're like chiseling it out, you're still gonna come back every now and again and just like resculpt the line a little bit or take a cut a little different and, you know, change the overall. Like, you're still gonna come back and play with it. You know, same as if you're a comedian. You're gonna play your sets, do your thing, put your stuff out there, and depending on the reaction of where you're at, you're gonna take your notes and come back at it. All of us that try to always just do better because that's our art, and we want our art to be as beautiful as we can make it. You know, that's why I was like, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't have to be something you can physically hold or smell or touch or, you know, lick or, you know, see, or it can just be heard. It can just be felt. You know, as long as we're giving it from the inside, like that to me is that's that expression, and I would classify that as art. You know, to us doing this is our art, and really all we want to do is have other people make this kind of art where they're just talking to each other. So think about that. If every action you did was a truer internal expression, you'd be making art. So your job would be art. You know, your personal life would be art. The way you spend time with your family, you know, your kids, your nieces, you know, your grandparents, whoever, that would be art. Like, you learning something new or reading a book would be art because you'd be doing some sort of an internal expression. Like, I'm always talking about projecting. That's that same kind of thing. If you were doing it where it was always supporting your why, to me, like, every action then would just be your beautiful art, and you would enjoy your life that much more.
Well, as long as, like you said, though, that you're taking time to see to your needs before you start worrying about everybody else's. And that's a really hard thing to balance, right? Because what's an appropriate amount of time for me? Or for me to spend time with a friend, or for me to express myself, or for me to just be. To go off, like we said, like Walter Russell in the middle of the woods and just sit there.
Yeah, I was going to say, how long did Buddha disappear into the woods?
And that if you can't find that outlet before you have to connect back to your social circle, how does that affect how you deal with, you know, difficult situations with people attacking you verbally or you know, mentally or whatever, you know.
And see, and that's why I like that idea of stripping yourself and going out into the nothing to discover yourself. You know, like you're leaving all things behind. You know, not just like material possessions, personalities, like your ego, like everything.
Oh my God, is that man naked?
No, yeah, I know, right? Yeah, that's totally what I meant.
I didn't mean like that, but per se. But
well, but perhaps maybe.
You know, but if that's what works for you, I guess
right?
There are people out there that still do.
Maybe you're always wearing a suit, so instead you strip down to just shorts and an undershirt.
Well, the point is, the focus is not on the physical anymore. It's whatever makes it easier for you to get to that point where it's no longer about your body. I mean, the reason you wear comfortable clothes when you meditate is because you don't want tight spots in your pants or your shirt or, you know, whatever to throw you off. Like, you're basically trying to forget that you are in a physical body, because the reality is this is a prison that you are in while you're here.
Which I think supports the Elon Musk idea where, you know, we're avatars and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, and that's that exact point, is that's when you can remove all those things, you can think outside the box. When you can use the imagination, I think all the things are very secular or circuit, like very
Cyclical?
no, very congruent with one another.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I'm drawing a circle, and so
Yeah.
I'm thinking circle. It's just like no, that's not the word. That's not how that works. But
It's like, yes.
well, to me, to the point of being like synonymous, where they're almost like interchangeable, because they
That made no
promote.
sense. I'm sorry.
Well,
Me.
but they promote the same thing is why that it works in that fashion. So I think it's healthy to do it in that way, as well as I mean, you're just having the conversations, being willing to talk about these things, and especially if you're going to do it in a very beautiful manner, meaning that you're trying to make that art. That you would want to have more of these conversations, like you would want to do more of those things.
Well, that's the funny thing. And like in my mind, I'm listening as I'm listening to you. I'm trying to fully listen and I'm trying to think of my next thought, which is an interesting thing to learn how to do, which kind of happens on the fly. But the whole time I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about it from a listener's perspective, because there are times when we listen to the show, whether it's live or whether it's, something we've recorded, that you realize like you get into internal conversations, or if you're with somebody else, you might actually have another completely side conversation because something strikes a thought in your head and I love the fact that it's quite possible, and I would love a conversation to start to the point where, like, whatever, if you're listening to this, that it just becomes background noise and that you're working through something else with someone else.
Right.
I love that idea.
Dude, that's dope.
I mean,
that's a beautiful expression right there. Thank you for
trying
that.
to express what happened with my cousin when she came to visit me, when we listened to one episode that's really kind of troubled me, that I have to come back to over and over, a previous recording that's not been aired. But
well, I think that goes back to this helping us not be crazy.
But that
right?
experiencing that with her kind of put us on a different level with each other. And we ended up pausing several times throughout the recording, like I was telling you, that where we saw each other for the first time in a different light. You know what I mean? Like, we knew we had a connection growing up. This is, I have 4 cousins. This is the only one that I'm really connected with. And she came to visit me for 4 days, and she'd only planned to stay 2. So as luck would have it, it ended up working out that way. But it was totally my fault that whole thing happened, because I decided not only that I wanted to listen to it, but I wanted her to take part in that. So I kind of set her up because I knew she was coming home in a certain hour.
You button hooked her.
I totally button hooked her.
Yeah, she didn't know you were going to do that.
The funny thing is, she actually thanked me for it. So she came back later on and just, I mean, I'm not going to read verbatim what she said, but it was basically like she was thanking me for the experience of allowing, like you said, allowing myself to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And how many people are willing to do that?
And to me, that when you're making your art, you have to be vulnerable, because you're giving that internal expression. You're letting people in. Yeah, that can hurt.
That can
sometimes.
Be really difficult. Yeah,
very. Do it. No, it is. Difficult.
Yeah, I mean, if what you're putting forward is really truly art.
Well, right.
Because if it's like we said about comedy, right? Comedy is right. Comedy is suffering.
Yeah, comedy's pain.
Comedy is pain, but it's how you put that out there, because it's such a commonality with other people that they understand it, they get it, and if you put that little funny twist on it, they laugh even harder, because they're laughing at themselves too, in a way. Like, they're seeing themselves in a situation that may be similar. And that's what makes it easier. It's the human aspect. It's the pain and suffering that's, strangely enough, if it wasn't there, like, if this whole idea of mortality wasn't there, you wouldn't be able to enjoy life, kind of thing. If there wasn't a finiteness to it, it wouldn't have the same value.
And see, and now, like, all right, so imagination and alternate perspectives on things. Look at for what it was Star Trek, the Vulcans, their perception of non-emotion for no purpose of any point. They're strictly logical.
Right.
Same information as humans, totally different look at it.
Which is interesting, because if you really follow the whole storyline, if you're totally geeking out on that, he becomes, well, he was half, right? Spock was actually,
I was saying Vulcan
but
specifically.
Spock was the one you kind of got to know in the whole series, really. But he was the one that was,
Well, yeah, correct, but yeah, Spock was half human, half Vulcan.
so you get to see kind of that
Dichotomy.
Well, not only that, but like as he progresses, he becomes more human. Like towards the end, Spock starts very, animatronic, very, robotic.
Super
But near
educated,
the end,
than
especially
Spock.
when they started making the movies later on with Leonard Nimoy, that he became much more human. But that was interesting, I think. But they were definitely tapping into something there too, because there seemed to be like there was some kind of a cultural spiritual connection with and that was something to do with their belief system, right? That made them like that. Because it was something that was historically, I think as the story goes, it was something they found logic was actually better for survival. I think was the bottom line, was that they would get rid of emotion because it was dangerous, which is interesting. That's an interesting.
Right. Well, that's how they derive to the idea of what you have to do what's best for the many and not the few.
Right.
And that's why I like the.
Well, that's interesting. Isn't that very Buddhist, though? I mean, really, because it's not about, because that's what it was all about. It was, if you're removing the emotion, you're removing the attachment to any kind of situation that could come at you. It's just, it is what it is. And after it happens, it's done. If we get through it, then, and that was the logic side of things, that they came to a realization way back in their culture that kind of made them like that, almost genetically to some extent, uber logical creatures, because they realized it was a survival trait that allowed them to live this long. They realized that connection to their pain was too dangerous, in a way.
Well, but I think also in letting go, you're removing fear, which means now you can think more openly and really just be more expressionate of the inside, even if that means it comes out in a logical manner.
Well, fear makes you stupid.
It certainly can.
Well, no, they're actually proving that now. I mean, like your ability to logic through a situation, your ability drops by like 30% once you're either afraid or angry, but they usually kind of coincide.
See, and I think that's why I like the idea of supporting your why.
That's interesting. Fear and anger coincide.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that.
Well, but to me, when you have that why, it kind of removes that fear, because you're like, well, I have to do this. So even if it, sucks or it's going to hurt, I'm still moving forward. I'm still doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
That's a healthy way to look at it. Unfortunately, not everybody looks at it that way.
Well, I think you're more what we would call successful people typically are. They're
right.
They call them fearless. Stoic. There's all sorts of different ways of saying that they're emotionless, or they're very matter of fact, or cut or dry. They have their rules, their boundaries. I mean, there's so many ways to say it. They're very practiced in their habits, and it's because it supports their why, and they know why they want to do and what they do, and it makes choices easier.
Well, you've programmed yourself not to focus on failure. Failure is just one other way not to do whatever it is I'm trying to do. So you don't lose track of that. And I think that's the difference between successful people and the average person, is that you don't live in the failure. You look at it, you acknowledge it, you realize where possibly you could have done better, and you move on. Right? I mean, that's the whole idea. And then that you don't let that take over you. So in a way, you're very Spock-like, right? You remove the emotional attachment to that.
Is this this is a big ear joke, right? Is that what you're saying? Because I'm like Spock? Is that... No, just good.
They're not really pointing, but really...
Yeah, they're pretty big, man. They can pick up things.
Why do they have to be pointing? That was just a thing, I guess. I don't know why.
I sidetracked you. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's all right. The Spock talk.
Yeah, well, you brought up Spock. I brought up Vulcans. And then
you brought up Vulcans, but, when I think Vulcans, I think Spock,
I think Beastie Boys.
Okay.
Because I'm super educated.
Smaller than all right.
Yeah, I brought it back around.
Cool. All right.
Brought it back around.
Yeah, see, it's the again.
That's another Beasties reference on why we call I'm Telling You.
It's the again that makes it funny.
Well, I always try to interject some levity, because we do get very serious here, but we want to make sure that we're also very jovial or light. So it's one of those things where I don't know. It keeps us grounded. I like right, honest. But that's what I'm about.
Yeah. I mean, coming without a script, without any kind of idea, basically until after we hit the red button. Um,
This is straight freestyle live. This is how we roll.
and I like to think it's I don't know.
Unedited, uncut, no changes. We just do it.
We don't do small talk. That's what it's really about. We don't do small talk.
I know our small talk is us setting up. Like, so when are we gonna get together and talk?
Yeah, no, that's it. That's it.
And then we start talking, and then you're like, we should really record this. Dude, I just find it.
Was that me?
It's what you sound like right now. Do you know that? This is what you sound like. Yeah, no, that's not. No, I always find it. I still find it.
Like you sound like Joe Pesci right now.
F you with the drive-through. I find it very comical that, and I say it, and it still tickles me, so I'm going to say it all the time, is I had to fight you for so long to get you to do this, and then as soon as we started doing it, all of a sudden you're just like, let's do more! You're like, dude, you're pushing for, and I appreciate it. I'm so grateful for it. So.
Well, so much of that is, though, as long as we can keep it, I mean, there's something about the connection that the two of us have, as long as we can keep it as natural and organic as possible, that it doesn't feel contrived. It doesn't, and that's why I've been just going along with it. I'm like, the only thing I'm really trying to do is throw up an idea that we could, something that we could really grab onto and talk about for, 50 minutes or something like that.
Apparently that's everything.
Which is, yeah.
Or anything.
Like we said, it's just one big conversation. You just happen to be getting snippets of it, just little pieces.
I know. I could be talking about like a bagel or something while I was listening to Wu-Tang, and that would be like 4 episodes or something. Who knows? But that's what happens with us. Like we were doing the one episode where you like literally tangented yourself. You were having your own conversation with you.
Yeah.
Dude, so much so we get to the end of the show and you're like, you're like, no, I'm done. I can't do anymore. You got to finish this. I go for like 15 seconds and you cut right back in and just like run for another 3 minutes. If I was just like, no, apparently he's not done.
Sometimes that's how it works,
But that's what's beautiful, and that's why I'm like, I agree with you on this. That's what's beautiful about the show is there is no forcing anything. There's no propaganda or rhetoric or like we don't have to have a forced conversation.
We've tried it. That's the problem.
Yeah, it didn't work. We just always tangent.
We've tried like, hey, we'll talk about this and then that and then this, and it's just like you get to maybe number 2 and you just kind of like. It's better to just let it go where it's going to go.
You're right. I've already tangented. I can't tangent anymore.
All right, like I said. No, they're going to do what they're going to do, baby.
Do what he do, baby. And we do what he do.
We do.
That's what we do. And we get to be serious. We get to have these.
What are you saying right now?
I don't know. Nobody understand the words coming out of your mouth. We can have any of those conversations because it's going to be that. There's that underlying component of appreciation and respect for the fact that you're opening and expressing yourself. Like, we know this is, as we can define it as an art, it's an internal expression. So the fact that we're vulnerable and know that of one another, we accept one another and we accept each other's ideas. Doesn't mean we agree with it or we're willing to listen to it. Because of that, we are relaxed in having those kind of conversations where it doesn't have to be forced, and we don't want it to be.
Well, so a lot of times it's not even something you have to agree or disagree with because it just is. Like, if I tell you an experience the way I perceive it, you're not going to argue that point. And that's the thing I love. It doesn't necessarily, oh, wow, I never thought about it like that. It might be more the expression. And then that just would lead on into something else where that just made me think of this, and that's what I love about it is that, we're not looking for.
The thing that you and I both do that I've been noticing more and more lately is we'll say you know what I just like, and we pointed our brains. It's like, you know what I just saw, like, you know what that just triggered in my brain. It's like, dude, there was literally like a movie thing that just happened inside our brain, and it was just like, no, we're going here. My brain said that, and
I thought you were saying just how stupid it is to point or gesture at anything when we're just audio, but.
Well, I mean, that's you being negative again. I don't know,
because I've done that before, and I've like mentioned something, and you're like. Nobody can see that I'm raising my hand or waving it or that I'm pointing at my head or...
Yeah, it's not how this works.
Nah,
it's not
sorry.
how any of this works.
It really doesn't get across that way.
You have to paint the word pictures, and you got to make it real pretty like too.
Say unless you're like me and you've gotten used to listening to, I don't know, I've done this before where I just put on shows but I don't actually watch it, I just listen to it.
It's that white noise.
So then like if somebody, gestures, like you could just kind of take it in context. Maybe some people already figured out that I was pointing at my head, but I don't know. Probably not.
It triggered their own movie in their own brain, and maybe so.
That's what we're trying to do, man. I mean, that's what we're trying to create. We're trying to create a reality outside of small talk, a reality that maybe your head has gone before when you're watching like Mysteries of the Unexplained or
Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Mystery Science Theater 3000 or an old episode of Sherlock Holmes or whatever. I mean,
Well, that's why I like the idea of like whatever you're doing is as long as it's coming from the inside and you're putting it out there. That's art. Even you sitting on the couch watching TV. We were watching this thing about RZA and the 10 different movie influences for the Wu-Tang and all the different albums and whatnot. And so him sitting there and rewatching them and learning, and that was like part of one of his arts. So, you sitting on a couch can still be successful as long as you're, projecting or building towards your why and like actually being who you're supposed to be.
Oh, and I was like, I'm staring at the screen. I can't take my eyes off it. I'm like, oh man. I'm like, I knew where some of the clips came from, but like I wasn't familiar with where all of them came from. But when you talk about like, Enter the Wu-Tang, 36 Chambers, and my favorite album, right, the Liquid Swords album by GZA, like all the cuts that came out of that, like he shows you where they all come from, and you're like, ooh.
Oh, so well, and I mean across all their albums because now you're talking about like all these bomb classics.
True, yeah.
That we grew up watching them on the lo-fi UHF channels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did. Mine was black and white Sunday. Oh no, dude, I had vice grips. Yeah, dude, nah, I don't like it. Nah, that one's. Oh man, yeah, no.
Were you gonna do that thing with the antenna?
No, not an antenna. Coat hanger.
Well, it usually ended up being a coat hanger. That was the first thing to go. It was a coat hanger, and then maybe eventually you'd get like the aluminum foil like wrapped around it.
We couldn't afford aluminum foil.
Wow, dude. Okay.
Well, we couldn't afford to use it for antennae.
Sorry, another coat hanger, maybe.
Nah, we cut it and like made different shapes out of it, and
actually that's funny. I actually
UHF is pretty easy to pick up, so the
punctured my foot once going through my messy room, and the antenna had fallen off my TV and landed on the floor. I actually punctured my foot stepping on my homemade antenna. Stepping on my homemade antenna. So that memory is really good.
So shoes first, or you wear shoes and then safety first. There you go.
Even in your room.
Yeah, you always. But so you and I were going.
Well, no, the memory's funny, and the memory really sticks with me because I stepped right on like the part that was bent up that it could fit into the back of the TV. The part that popped off from the TV was poking right up on the floor, and I stepped with all my weight right on it. During the process, my mom was already yelling at me for the condition of my room, and that put her in like overdrive because it was like, see,
this is why I always do.
So
thanks, Mom.
That memory really sticks with me. But yeah, I remember those antennas.
And so we're going through and we're watching all of those different pieces and components, and yeah, dude, that's why I was like, dude, yeah, you can sit on a couch and be successful. You just gotta project it towards the right piece of it, and yeah, no, it's I really enjoyed so us being able to sit there and just watch it and kind of do its thing, and then we can we can just go off on it, or we can pull from it, and rewatching him talk about this, that, and the other, we instantly was nostalgic, and we had this whole conversation about it, and it's like,
right,
dude, we movie speak, but we also like music speak, and then when we get into situations with that, it's like movie music speak, where you're like quoting the music even though it's quoting the movie, and it's.
Well, I mean, we've been listening to those albums. Like, I still have a copy. I still have a copy in my one of my family cars that has I have a copy of the GZA album, like in the car. Like I only have like 7 discs in there, I think.
Yeah, I'm the same. One of those is them.
And that's one of the ones I still have in that car. And it's like I could never play that with my kids in the car. It's terrible music.
No, I'm pretty sure mine's listened. Of course, mine's also like 17 almost.
But that's yeah. I mean, eventually maybe, but
No, I broke her in young. She's been listening to the Woo since she was an infant. I just turned the volume down. I don't want her ears to bleed.
But what I'm saying is to the point where like it was not even just the songs, but like we knew all the like little snippets in between the songs and all the little skits and stuff they do. And
Dude, I think that was the better
quoting some
parts.
earlier.
But dude, that's what I always like. I love quoting ODB. Wu-Tang is here forever. And it's just like, dude, there's so many different great pieces of it. So even with like doing Wu-Tang, I'll still quote like ODB, where it's just like, "Oh baby, I like it," raw, and any of that stuff. Yeah, because I mean, to me that's an enjoyable thing. That's why we'll quote movies, but we'll also quote music, and I just
That's like our sampling, right?
well, kind of, that's our art. So that's why I really enjoyed watching that piece, and because I mean all of those, dude, I've seen those movies over and over again. We talked about how that was like our Sunday morning thing. So, art is going to be whatever art's going to be, and we can take it from wherever it's at. And it's our influences, and we bring them in, and then we try to express them outwards. So, I don't. That's why I really like Wu-Tang, because it's the same thing as us. They took all that things that they had that they really enjoyed, and it just kept supporting. I mean, every album had that influence in it. And it wasn't even just the Wu-Tang album. It was just, whether it was like Ghostface or like Master Killer or like GZA or any of them. Because, I mean, dude, they had so many side pieces. The same as, Method Man, all that. Dude, there was always going to be some sort of a Shaolin or, they always brought it back to that why. They expressed it.
Well, I love how the RZA thinks about a style of rapping as like a weapon. That they all use different weapons, like they all are masters of different styles with different weapons, and I love that tie-in. Like he says, and he's not the first one to say this, but the whole reference to the tongue being a sword, I thought was spot on, and that it's one thing to have the sword, but what did he say? The way I thought about it, I was more like the
guillotine that chopped the head off.
The flying guillotine.
Yeah.
Because it was much more adaptable. It was like a quick attack. It came out of nowhere. You thought you were safe being a certain distance. No. This thing could come out of nowhere, drop on your head, and whoosh.
Well, because that was the idea, is the only thing that could beat sword, because sword could beat like nunchuck or, the three-pole fighting tool, bow staff. You could chop
the three-section staff or whatever it was called.
Yeah. But you could, the sword could break and cut any of that. So,
what's even better than the sword?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, the flying guillotine. You just chop off your head, because here comes the flying guillotine and chop off your head. Right. That's
well, like he said, because they were trying to adapt this. They were trying to adapt their style to the point where they could basically within 4 bars just take somebody's head off.
Yeah, he was like swearing on the story. Yeah. He's like, sorry for the language.
Sorry about that.
He was completely off
it's
the
so
cuff.
Funny because like he's now like I don't want to say an old head, but he's definitely up there in age now. And like we look at him, we still look up to him, we still respect him because we grew up with everything. So it's so awesome to see that human side of him where he's explaining like where it all came from.
And he was talking about like when he was like 8 and 10 and stuff.
Yeah.
Like when he was a kid. Same thing as
and there was a parallel there, right? Because we were saying right off that same conversation that like, I remember waking up at like, I don't know, like some ungodly hour. I remember waking up, if you woke up early enough in the morning on a Sunday and you tuned in, I forget which UHF channel it was locally, but you could find like a quick like Sunday morning kung fu theater thing.
Oh yeah, there was usually like 2 of them back to back.
And then a lot of times they had like a double feature matinee Sunday in the afternoon.
Oh yeah, and that's where you got to see like the 5 Venoms and 36 Chambers and any of those movies. Like, dude, tons of them.
So there was definitely a connection. I always had a connection with it because I was always intrigued by the like the Eastern thought process and martial arts and all that. Like, because it's just so different from here. That.
Yeah, well, because I did I made the reference of Pai Mei in the Kill Bill, which that was an addition or an extension of from the originals, which I think was like 78 or 77 or
Oh,
something.
with the Kill Bill reference with the
Well, yeah, when they brought Pai Mei in, where the guy, whenever he would go to fight him, it's like, dude, he was like, yeah, man, he moves his weakness. And, the guy goes to like grab him in the groin, and he's just like, oh, can you find it? It's like, yeah, he just moved those. I don't know how he did it, but he just moved those things. Like, what the heck is this?
or just what was it? The iron skin technique, which is another one of the old
Yeah, for the toad.
kung fu movies that.
Yeah, when you have that tough skin like a toad, where you can.
But that you're basically like the idea is that you're moving, not that you're moving your weak spot, you're moving your protective armor, your chi to that area, and you're protecting it.
See, and that's
So that like even if you go to grab it, it's like trying to grab onto like a marble statue. It's just not going to work.
well, and that's what I think is really great. That
What do you say? Where'd they go? I don't even know.
well, but I think that's the great thing that Wu Tang was able to draw. I mean, at least that's what RZA like I took was he was expressing was we took these things as a kid and we ran with them. We started using those as the philosophy. He's like I started getting into like Buddhism and stuff and started reading. So them just watching these movies.
Well, and if you listen to, I mean, that's what's weird because when you see their lyrics written out, man, it's like, man, that stuff is deep.
And they're quoting the crap out of those movies.
They're quoting the movies. They're quoting, well, for them, scriptural stuff. They're quoting all kinds. I mean, the tie-ins are crazy when you really pay attention to it. I mean, it's really when I started reading, and I know a couple of them, I think I even shared with you. I was like, I looked it up and I was like, wow, man, I've been singing this for years, but like to actually see it and see every reference one after another, it's like, these guys are real deep thinkers. I mean, there was nothing surface about anything they did. So in a way, there is kind of a connection, right? Because they didn't do the small talk like you listen to.
Right.
I mean, I joke around, well, not lightheartedly, but I joke around that hip hop is dead because in a way, like they're not. To me, it's like it's not all about telling the story anymore because it's like, hey, so much of it is like, hey, look what I got, look what I'm driving, look at this gold that I'm rocking. It's like it gets old after a while,
It's very repetitive.
But there's something about, like I said, the GZA Liquid Swords album is my favorite hip hop album ever, and I have no problem saying that because every single track on that is just completely on point. Like the production quality, the just everything about it. It's hard to say. Like the
structure of it,
the whole delivery
lyrics,
of it.
the music, the samples, and that's why I really like using them as a reference in the idea of being able to grow from your surroundings. So you could have very minimal input, but when you do something very deep with it, when you take that moment to think about it and work on it and better yourself, which is pretty much what all they did.
Yeah.
And look what happened. How many albums?
And how many of those beautiful artists, I mean, whether East Coast or West Coast, I mean, I don't even look at those, necessarily draw those lines. That's art is art to me anywhere.
Right.
But the whole, the difference between each artist and what they bring and like the whole thing, the comedy tie-in, it's the pain that they're bringing in, but they're twisting it and they're making light of it and they're showing you kind of the dark side, but at the same time, I was reading one of them. I can't remember what track it was, but it's one I'm very familiar with. I can't remember if it was from 36 Chambers or if it was from Liquid Swords album, but I'm reading the whole thing and I'm like, this is poetry. This is straight up poetry. Like if you'd taken the same thing written down and just handed it in somewhere, it's poetry. So it's amazing how there's like, you can't even draw a line between the two. It's totally art.
Yeah. And that's why I think that's when you're taking that perspective of yourself, when you're literally being vulnerable and allowing people to be in because you're putting it out, dude, I think it's always going to be beautiful. Like you were saying, there's always ways to kind of work on it, perfect it, change it, make it better, whatever, which we do ourselves as anybody should be doing. It's just the fact that you do it though. And, so it gives you that place to do it and feel comfortable with it. And eventually you start to just feel better about
but what did they do?
And,
what did they do though? Like I'm saying, when I read this, like I feel the pain. Like you're hearing in eloquent wording, you're hearing all the things that affect them throughout their childhood, all the things that they had to see and experience. But it's written so eloquently and it's delivered so eloquently that, like I said, been listening to it for 20 years and I didn't get it all until I actually saw it on paper, saw it in written word. that it just kind of clicked home for me. I was like, damn, this is some deep-ish, you know what I mean? This is some really deep, like, struggle.
Well, see, and
And that's what makes it such a beautiful art. Is like, I look at some of the other stuff, and I'm not going to be critical about any one particular over another, but it seems to me like it's lost some of that in the mainstream anyway, that real heartfelt commitment to the art form, to understanding and putting out what they're trying to tell you, you know, what they went through, you know, in hopes that maybe it could make your life better, or that at least you could make light of it, like a comedian would do, to take some pain and make it into amusement, you know?
Yeah, that's why I like that whole vulnerability component. You have to be like raw and honest and really. That's why I was like, if it's coming from the inside, that is art because you're being vulnerable. And you know, I think
And honest with yourself before. I mean, a lot of people could claim honesty with everyone else, but that doesn't mean anything if you can't be honest with yourself first, right?
it was going with the 4 agreements, being impeccable.
Being impeccable.
But
I mean,
see, and you know, I really had this thought about.
but how can you do that? Like anything else, like people always say, like, well, you can't love anyone else until you learn to love yourself. But it's the same thing with truth. If you can't be truthful and you can't be honest with yourself, and see through your own lies that you tell yourself, you know, how can you tell anybody else how they're living their life? Or how can you even try to step in and be an assistance in their life? You know?
And you know, to bring back around on my point of like what I was thinking about with all that was just doing your best always. You know, it goes right back. To me, being impeccable is great, but you know, give me 100% of what you got, which might only be 10% today. But if you give me that 10%, that's 100% of what you got.
I always like that. Yeah.
Well, to me, that's that perspective component of it, which is
it takes the pressure off.
Well, and you know, that just comes right back around to the whole thing of just being free with yourself and knowing what your why is, and just trusting that you can express yourself, and it's only going to help you grow. You're going to be more free. You're going to be more open, and
right.
Yeah, it helps you get rid of that pain too. That's you. You got to support imagination. Just let yourself think and let it out.
And then, you know, what you end up at the end of all that is some type of art, whether it's a tangible thing that you can pass on to someone else or not. Like you said, it's what you bring to it. So, you know, if I shovel crap all day and that's my job,
yeah,
you know, I'm going to make it memorable. I'm going to do it well. I'm going to do it as best as I can.
Garbage man, nurse, you know, auto repair.
But what do we say? Those people are just as much a lifesaver as a doctor.
Yeah.
Because we're all needed.
We are.
You know, we shouldn't diminish each other, right? So, anyway,
just as we're always about to like really get into it.
In a show that's all about digression, I can't really say I digress, but
it's just one continuous tangent anyways, really. Let's be honest about it. Well, so yeah, I mean, if you enjoyed what we did, which I'm hoping you did, because we certainly did. I mean, we always do. I don't know.
We always do. Conversation never stops.
Yeah, right. Well, so yeah, if you want to continue that conversation with us, you can reach out to us at I'm Telling You at directionsofmusic.org. It's IMTELLINYOU. I'm Telling You at directionsofmusic.org. I mean, as always, this is Philly D.
This is Mr. Gemini.
Yeah, right. You know, I'm telling you, you've been listening. We'll catch you next time, fam. Thanks for tuning in.
Much love, everyone. Peace.
Peace.